What's up, it's Gene, your coach, your motivated impact storyteller. Hey, I want to talk to you guys about keeping it real, which is one of the craziest phrases I have ever heard when it pertains to a hood perspective. You see, when I was growing up, keeping it real was somebody that most likely went to jail, or somebody that was successful at something. They came back to the hood and they was out there hanging out. They was keeping it real. They was not forgetting where they came from. It is the most ridiculous phrase I have ever heard when it pertains to that. And when I go in them juvenile detention centers, one thing I always try to tell a guy is to get out of your vocabulary this phrase of keeping it real. You know, when I was coming up, it was the craziest thing. I used to always notice that when guys, got out of jail, they had barbecues for them. You know what I'm saying? Because obviously they was keeping it real. But when you graduated from college, there was no barbecues for you. Obviously, you was not keeping it real. And I made up my mind a long time ago that I was not going to allow keeping it real to be something that's going to be associated with my life. I told y'all back in December when I went to the Juvenile Detention Center to speak to the 300 youth about, their value and their word to be celebrated. What I did not tell y'all about the other individual that was there. So after I spoke for 5 minutes and I was talking to the guys about the book, half of them didn't have the book, the young men and women, because I didn't have enough sponsors at that time. Now, after I was talking about this blueprint that I've written for at-risk teenagers, especially that are trying to get out the hood, after I was done speaking in front of these 300 youth and a bunch of adults, there was also a guy in the audience that owned a major radio station. So when I was finished speaking, there was another individual that spoke after me. He went to prison at the age of 18. And now he was almost 50 years old, and he had only been out of prison for 2.5 months, right? Now, when we was done speaking, the guy that had spent all his years in prison, he came up and started talking to me about my book, and he was talking to me about the things I was doing. And the guy that owns the radio station comes up to both of us. He wanted a guest on his radio station. Now, who do you think out the two of us he asked to be on his radio station? It wasn't me. It was the guy that he felt was keeping it real, who has spent the majority of his life in prison. Now, that always bothered me, how we associate keeping it real with you going to prison. Keeping it real, you become successful, but then you go back to the hood and you go live in the hood to show everybody that you keeping it real. You see, I had a lot of respect for Nipsey. I do. I have a massive amount. This dude's an entrepreneur. He had wealth. He was giving up his time. He had businesses out in the hood. But I do believe the major thing that he fell victim to was keeping it real. You see, there's 2% in the hood of guys who will not work. They feel entitled to success. And when they see somebody that's more successful than them, they get envious, they get jealous, and those are the individuals that end up killing somebody who has decided to turn their life around, or who have become successful doing things the right way. And if you're an individual out there and you have dreams and you're pursuing those dreams and you are having success, do not fall into this trap of keeping it real, because keeping it real will rob you of that success. It can cost you your life, and it's just not worth it. So I want to encourage you, especially if you're somebody that is from the hood, because as we know, if you're from the hood, getting out the hood is hard work. You have to be extremely focused. You have to have a sick and extremely strong work ethic. You have to be willing to deal with criticism, and you have to be resilient. So getting out the hood is not easy. So if you have worked yourself out the hood, do not fall into this trap of keeping it real.